Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Kate Clemmer, and welcome back to Hudson Canyon Live. So this is our second live stream. If you ended up missing the first one, which happened on Wednesday, it actually lives on our YouTube page, so feel free to go back and watch that at any time. So I'm reporting live directly from Hudson Canyon and aboard the NOAA Nancy Foster ship. And again, none of this could be made possible if it wasn't for the support of NOAA Fisheries, the Ocean Exploration Cooperative Institute, the Inner Space Center at the University of Rhode Island, and the Office of Marine Aviation Operations. So to kind of kick off what we're learning about today, it's mostly about the ROV, the remotely operated vehicle, and its mechanics and how it takes samples. But we kind of want to start from working our way out and then down below. So in order to do that, we're going to focus on mapping and sounding. So we kind of have to figure out what needs to happen in order for the ROV to get down below. So we're actually going to meet some people from our dry lab right over here, and they're going to walk us through that process. Follow us. All right. Hello, Tori, and welcome. So just tell us maybe your name and where you're coming from today.
Sure, yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm Tori Kentner, and I work for the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council.
Awesome. So we're actually just really curious about what your role is on board the ship and go into a little bit of detail on what that is.
Sure, yeah. So I am one of the mappers here. So at night, when we're not surveying, the survey team over here, they collect bathymetry data. And so that goes to me, and what you're looking at here is a bathymetry map. And so I process that so that we can figure out where the ROV should go. So I'll show you a few layers if you're interested.
Yeah, that would be great.
Sure. So we start with a bathymetry like this. I can add a hill shade. So what that does is kind of give us an idea is if there was light down there, kind of gives us shadow so we can get an idea of kind of the contours and the depth there. Then I can add depth contours. And so these are just lines showing us how deep it is. So instead of just kind of guessing by the colors, we can actually see the lines. And the closer the lines are together, the steeper it is. Corals really like steep areas. And so I can also create a slope layer, and that shows us the really, really steep area. So the closer the lines are together, the redder it is, the steeper it is, and the better chance we have for finding corals. So I take all of this together, and then I put dive tracks on there. So that's what these white points are. So we started here on a flat area. Flat's good because we can take samples of the sediment, and then we moved up the slope, and we're right here between 4 and 5 right now. So we've seen a few corals so far, and we're hoping we're going to see some more as we move around this corner.
So is the plan to you would essentially dive on all of those white points, or are those kind of just wish lists?
That is the hope. We might not get through all of these today. It depends how much we see. If it's really interesting, then we might slow down, take samples. I think right now they're actually behind my shoulder preparing to take some coral samples.
Awesome.
So that takes a little more time.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you kind of mentioned that you do a lot of this work at nighttime. So I think I'm curious, and maybe the audience is as well, what kind of work did you have to do before you got aboard this research cruise? Like, what kind of baseline data did you need?
Yeah, so a lot of the bathymetries we had, but they weren't a really high resolution. So what Ben and Sam do is they survey at night, and so they use a multi-beam sonar, and so they can get really, really high resolution data for us, and that helps because we can see more of the landscape. Something else that's kind of fun to look at is we can put this into 3D. And so you can actually visualize it a little better. So you can see how steep this is. So we have a flat surface here, steeper here. And so just knowing where that steep spot is helps us to find out where we want to survey. So what we actually did is looked at the entire Hudson Canyon, and we picked out spots that went from the very top all the way to the bottom of the canyon because we wanted to kind of hit a wide range of areas, a wide range of depths. And then we picked out surveys all along there. And so now we can choose from those each day where we want to go. Kind of based on what we're seeing and what we're hoping to see.
Oh, that's so cool. So I wonder how much of Hudson Canyon has been mapped before?
Yeah, not that much, actually. These are some of the first surveys to go into the water to actually see what's down there. So we can only know so much just from the bathymetry. It's not until we get to the bottom that we actually can find out what the terrain looks like, what the habitat looks like.
Awesome. And would you say that the mapping and the ROV exploration go completely hand in hand? You can't do one without the other?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they would be flying blind without these maps. So I send all these waypoints to Max, who puts them into his computer, and then he's able to feed those directly to the ROV, and they're in constant communication. So from the ship where it should be located, where the ROV should be located, and then I can look at my maps and see what we're seeing, how it's going, and if we need to change any points along the way.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much, Tori. I think this is a perfect segue for us to go talk to the engineering expert, Max.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right.
Hey there,
You can
Kate.
take the mic. So you can just tell us your name and where you're coming from today and talk a little bit about what your role is on board this research cruise.
Certainly. I'm Max Woolsey at the University of Southern Mississippi, and my work there at the university is to operate undersea vehicles. So part of the task of operating undersea vehicles is knowing where those vehicles are. So we have equipment called ultra short baseline, USBL for short. That allows us to track the position of the vehicle.
Ship's whistle and general alarm. Please disregard.
This might be cool.
If you operate a vessel, it's very important to check your ship's whistle and general alarm every day.
All further alarms.
Yeah, there are all sorts of drills and tests that go on every day, every week while we're offshore. Just part of living out here. So anyway, back to the tracking. We've got a transponder that's mounted on the ROV and another one that's mounted on the midweight, the clump weight that you've seen. And so those are tracked and they show up here on this navigation screen. So right now, if you could see my mouse here, the ROV is up here. It's following along with this wall we've been tracking, and that is the clump weight hanging underneath the stern of the ship. And the ship's making some moves to get everything in a acceptable position. This screen is kept kind of clean and clutter-free just because it's not only being used down here, it's also being broadcast to the bridge where the people at the helm make their decisions, and also at the ROV station where the ROV moves. And in fact, I'm being called right now from the ROV station.
That'll work.
Survey here.
Can we highlight that waypoint in the middle?
All right, highlighting waypoint 155415.
Can't all have play. Got to work a little bit.
There we go. So we're moving to our next waypoint.
Bridge RV, can we make it a move 142 meters, 163 heading?
So based on that waypoint change, the ROV van was able to know what maneuver needs to be performed.
163 at 0.2.
That command then gets relayed up to the bridge, and then the bridge makes a ship maneuver. And so the ship's going to move south and along the one of the walls that Tori showed you that was visible in the mapping done yesterday. So we keep this one pretty clean because we've got so many people using it. We don't want to have a lot going on. But if we look over here to the right, we could actually see the waypoints that that Tori and the team planned ahead of this mission, and we see it following this contour. The green up here and the blue down here is about 200 meters difference. So that's a very steep ridge. And if you're watching the ROV feed, you're going to see that that carbonate wall through here where they're locating cup corals. They seem to be in the overhangs right now. But anyway, it's really important for us to not swing that clump weight into that steep ridge. So that's one of my jobs today, making sure that we navigate properly and that we keep things operating safely. Tori was talking about the mapping that goes on overnight. So this is very fresh bathymetry data, and it comes from the station right over there with our survey tech, Ben.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Max. So we're actually going to open it up for some Q&A right now. I have some expert specialists right here in this room. So it's better to ask the questions now than later where I might not know the answer. So please throw them into the chat and we'll give a couple minutes or so to get these questions answered. All right, let's see what we've got. Lots of people queuing in. We've got people, oh, again, the New York Aquarium, the Bronx Zoo. That's great. So the colors on those maps, is that something standardized, like a gradient you have to use, or can you play around with the colors?
So it's really common to have a rainbow gradient. And if you want another example of that, right behind you is another station. Oh. Yeah, the colors are often shown with blue in the lower areas and red in the shallower areas. And this is a really cool 3D view of the data collected last night. And so, yeah, the blue, there you're seeing the depths of Hudson Canyon. And up at the top, we've got the red, and any of those steep slopes, we might be finding some of the elusive corals. So there's the rotation of the 3D view. And it's really common to use this, this color scheme, as well as incorporating some shading, so hill shading that really make the contours show up.
Cool, thank you. We got another question coming from New York Aquarium. How deep is the canyon?
Ooh, I'll pass that over to Tori because she's got several sites for us here.
Sure. So today's one of our deepest dives, and I have our dive plan here right now. So we started at about 2,170 meters deep, and we're ending our dive around 2,000. So that's pretty deep.
Wow. All right. And we've got a question from the BZ Max. I'm assuming that's Bronx Zoo. How often are these surveys conducted to update the topography? Do you know that?
Oh, the short answer is not often enough. It takes a lot of effort to get a research ship out here, and even more effort to get an AUV out here for surveying even closer to the bottom. We can only reach so much from the surface. So Ben, putting you on the spot, what is the resolution that you are able to get down here?
So, looking at this this image of the canyon we have, it's composed of these square pixels. And right now we're able to, the smallest pixel that we can get at this depth is about 20 meters by 20 meters. So so you're looking at a pretty large, a 60 foot by 60 foot square. And so so you can fit a lot of things inside of that square that we can't really discern with the sonar from this depth. And so there is a lot of detail on the large scale, but on the small scale, there's a lot to be missed, and that's why it's great having the ROV down there to go down and find all the stuff that it's just impossible for us to see from the surface.
Yeah, and by comparison, just a few nights ago, we were surveying the higher elevation parts of the canyon to update some of that bathymetry as well. And with that, we were looking about 400 meters or so, and we were able to get a resolution of, I believe, 8 meters by 8 meters. So much higher resolution that we can get in the shallower areas than when we're having to reach super far to get data from the deeps.
That's great. Well, I think that wraps us up right here. Thank you so much for your time. Our audience is loving what you have to show here.
Very cool.
So this is a perfect segue to, now that we've learned a little bit about the mapping and what goes on before the cruise and at nighttime, we're actually going to take a closer look at the ROV. So we're about to hear from our microbial ecologist, Dr. Layla Hamden. She is also the ROV team lead on this research cruise. So we're going to hear from her.
Hi, I'm Layla Hamden. I'm with the University of Southern Mississippi. I'm a marine microbial ecologist, and I'm out here on the NOAA ship Nancy Foster. We're primarily working with a remotely operated vehicle on this trip. It's the Global Explorer ROV, and this really is a tool. And we always have to remember, when we're doing exploration science, the tools are just the means for us to get to get to our goals. And this one just happens to be one that has the ability to put eyes on the seafloor, and it does that with cameras and lights, and the cameras are both video as well as still images, but it also is our hands on the seafloor too. And so we have a pilot that's driving it around to the locations that we want it to go to. We're using every bit of information that we have available to point it in the direction where we hope to see the habitats that we're interested in. And then once we're there, one of the things I do on this cruise is talk to the scientists, understand what their objectives are, and then figure out how to put those objectives, which typically are samples, on the vehicle. This is something that I love doing. Operating a research cruise with a remotely operated vehicle is not something that you walk out the door and know how to do. It took me about 20 years to become good at this. And for me, I don't think that you should have to spend 20 years to be able to get enough knowledge and enough confidence and all of the little tips and bits that you pick up along the way to be able to be successful at this. That's a huge barrier that we put in front of people that are brilliant and capable, and maybe they don't necessarily need to know all there is about the robot to do their work. And so what I hope I'm doing on this trip is being a facilitator. I want to be a chief facilitator and do everything I can to make this less intimidating. It is a very intimidating piece of equipment. It's big, it's expensive, it's dangerous, it has a lot of moving bits, and if you don't know them, it's hard to use them. And so I want to just put people and a robot together and make this wonderful marriage of science.
Wow, so great to hear about Dr. Hamden's passion for this field of work. So now we're going to take a little break. We're going to sit back, relax, and watch the team come together to get this ROV in the water.
Ready?
Wow, what a launch. I'm always in awe of how seamless the crew can lift and place that into the water just so seamlessly. And I just want to kind of reiterate what I talked about at the very beginning of this live stream, was that we're starting kind of small and we're working our way all the way down to the bottom of the sea. So, we wanted to start learning about the mapping, learning about what goes on outside of just using an ROV and this research vessel. And then we're going to kind of slowly bring you all in till we get all the way to the bottom of the ocean floor. So this is a really nice kind of segue into, we saw the ROV bobbing on the surface. Now we've put together a video to show the water column and the ROV really coming down. And I really want you to take notice of the changing colors and the light. It's really beautiful to see those transitions up close. So now you can see that we're fully at the bottom. So now we're going to go back to Dr. Hamden and hear her talk about what happens in the ROV van. And that is where the ROV is piloted from. And she's going to take us in and kind of show us what all the screens do inside there.
So the screens that we see most are the view right in front of the ROV. That's with a 4K, extremely high definition camera, which is one of the main tools that we're using here. To the right of the pilot, Tim, who's got the joystick in his hand right now, that camera is more facing down so that we're looking at the area right underneath, right in front of and right underneath the sub. So one of the biggest pieces of data that we collect from a expedition like this is visual observations, so stills and video camera, but we are also collecting biological and physical samples. What's reaching across the ROV right now is the manipulator arm. This is a 7-function manipulator arm that can move almost in more ways than your hand can. And so you can see the jaws are opening and closing. Jason Tripp is doing that. Port side or the left side of the ROV if it was facing forward. And we have a series of water sampling bottles that are located over there. And we would use that big robot arm that just came out in front of the ROV again to grab a little cable and yank a cord, which would send a physical trigger to close those bottles. So it just traps the water that's in the bottle at that moment, at that time, and that allows us to collect an eDNA sample. So any residual DNA that's shed by fish, by coral, by invertebrates, and also billions and billions of bacteria and archaea get trapped into that sample. On the lower right-hand corner, that's another down-looking view, and you're looking right at the quote front porch of the ROV, where we have quite a bit of our sampling payload. And on the left, there are a couple of circular items. I think I can point here. These guys over here. And those give us some more options to collect physical samples. So that robot arm could take a snip of coral and drop it right into a nice little tube that has a cap on it. And then to the left, we can collect mud samples by picking up that thing that looks like a T, pushing it down into the mud, and it takes a nice perfectly intact column of the mud, which we can drop back into the container. And then finally, on the left-hand side is a camera facing backwards. Just like yourself, you never know, like is your tag out or something on your shirt. It would be nice to have a camera back there, and that gives us that ability. And in the distance, you might see a light, and that's also part of the submarine. That's called a clump weight or an instrumented depressor, and it's just an auxiliary piece of the ROV that physically attaches to the ship. And that has a tether between it and the ROV, so that any kind of pull or push, or actually pull from the ship that might happen, it happens to that piece of equipment. It doesn't happen to the submarine. So that gives us a lot more safety in the water. For left-hand corner, that's a sonar screen. That was the bridge just telling us where we are.
Okay.
So that's a sonar screen. Sonar allows us to emit sound waves, and those sound waves bounce off of hard targets or hard substrates, and it allows us to create a picture using sound. And right now, the screen is picking up a couple of bright white spots. And those bright white spots are, we call them hard targets. We just know that something hard is there. And so Jason is giving the range to those targets to the pilot right now. And he's pointing us towards them. And we're going to go check out and see what's there. The last time we saw some hard targets like this, we started to hone in on where the habitat that we were looking for is. So wish us luck.
It's really cool to get to see all of those screens being broken down. As a viewer, it can be hard to tell what everything does. And as someone who went into the ROV van, I was a little bit intimidated by seeing like 15 screens on there. So I really appreciated Dr. Hamden's kind of overview and walkthrough of what all of those screens can do and how those all coordinate to different parts of the ROV. So now we're going to actually take a closer look at the ROV parts just so we can see them a little bit more clearly and understand what Dr. Hamden was referring to. So this is just the main photo. This is the ROV, the Global Explorer. We've seen a lot of pictures of it and footage of it up at this point. This thing is a beast. It's 7,500 pounds. It's 9 feet long, 5 feet tall. I mean, it's the size of like a minivan. So it's pretty big and it can do a lot of really incredible things. So first we're gonna take a look at the lights. So these are just some of the lights on the ROV, and these, can help spotlight a species or just help you see what's below. And that's what gives us such good footage from the cameras. And these are just some of the cameras. I'm highlighting these ones because I thought these were really cool. So these can capture, high definition video and still images of the deep sea environments as well. And then we're actually going to take a closer look at that manipulator arm that Dr. Hamden was talking about. So this is like a robotic arm that can handle all the really delicate work like collecting samples. The arm's precision can collect things like deep sea corals, sponges, anything maybe like gelatinous. It can also be used for geological sampling, like things like rocks and sediments from the seafloor. And the arm can also handle putting out scientific tools if the scientist was wanting to place anything out there as well. And it's all controlled from that ROV van that we were just inside during that video. So now I'm going to go over a little bit of the sampling areas. So, and these are the ones that Dr. Hammond also was highlighting as well, and how those kind of correlated to the different cameras. But the one on the very front, this is called a bio collection box. I think it kind of looks like a money box or a security box. And so this is a box where you can place any sort of like larger biological samples like corals or sponges, things that are too big or maybe too delicate for a vacuum system or the other sample jars that we have. So we're going to look at the next, which are Niskin bottles. And so these are really specialized for water sampling containers. And if you remember from our very first live stream, we had Dave Packer on. He's kind of our eDNA specialist. So that's environmental DNA. And that's the primary goal of utilizing these water samples is to test and look at the environmental DNA. And you can also look at things like water quality or salinity, just depending on what type of research or science you're trying to conduct. And then these are really cool. These are called push cores. So these are tube-shaped tool, and Dr. Hamden talked about them in her video as well, but it was kind of harder to see them on screen. But these are what they look like right on the side. So these are tube-shaped, used by the ROV like robot arm, the manipulator. So they basically can be made out of plastic or aluminum, and they get pushed all the way down into the seafloor to collect a sediment sample. So this action can, collect undisturbed cross-sectional sample of the seabed for analysis that they'll bring up. And then once the ROV comes up to the surface, they'll take those samples out, and then we'll utilize the wet lab to retract any sort of samples and take a closer look. And then we have something called the carousel suction skid. So this one is really cool. So it kind of looks like a large funnel, almost if you think about like a vacuum. And then there's a carousel that's connected to the back of it, kind of on the inside part of the ROV. And this is just a suction sampler, kind of like an underwater vacuum, and it can collect small or more fragile life forms. So I really want to be able to show some of our push core in action. So we're actually going to take a closer look at a mud sample being taken. And if you tuned into any of our live streams, you might have seen some of these happen. Some of these happened this morning as well. This footage is from yesterday, I believe. So you can see the robotic arm go in on the push core tube. So it's going to grab it. And it's not a very fast process, I'll say. It takes about maybe 2.5 minutes to get fully out into the sediment and back into the tube. But again, yeah, this robotic arm really has to use a lot of precision, and that is also, the person in the ROV van. They're the ones who are controlling this. So it's not like it's riding in autonomous or a code. It is someone actually piloting it and creating these maneuver tactics. So now it comes up. You got some real nice mud. And it goes back into the same tube that it was taken from. And it slides right in, and it creates kind of like a vacuum seal that way. So when the ROV comes back up to shore, those samples don't get ruined or filled with water or anything like that. So super cool. So now we're actually going to kind of turn this into a watch party. I have the graduate student, Adrian Castillo. He's actually going to be with me, and we're going to be interpreting some of the live feed that's going on right now and be able to ask any sort of questions. So feel free to just keep putting them in the chat. We'll talk about what we're seeing, maybe any species. So just to refresh, we are deeping at our deepest site today. About 2,200 meters. And once that live feed comes on, we'll be able to see the exact depth of what they're at. So to kind of put that in perspective, if you think about it, like 2,200 meters, it's like 7,200 feet. For the New Yorkers in the group, that's like 6 Empire State Buildings. So we're really far down in there, and we're hopefully trying to find some coral that we can take samples of to be able to better understand what's happening down below. All right, Adrian, why don't you join me over here? Hi. All right. Yeah, you can take the mic. So this is Adrian representing SUNY ESF. So if we have any undergrad, graduates, alumni, feel free to wrap it up in the chat. We love to see representation that way. All right. So why don't we take a look at some of the feed?
Awesome. How's it going, Kate?
It's going pretty good. What about you? What have you been up to today?
I've just been, this is the best TV I've ever seen. I'm so excited. We just managed to get some cup corals today, which finally I'll have something to work with in the lab once the ROV comes up. Up until this point, I've sort of just been twiddling my thumbs, like looking at papers, reading on the computer, sort of waiting for something to be doing. And now finally we're getting samples and I'll be actually able to process something. In terms of what we're seeing in the camera right now, we're looking at what is essentially the north-facing wall of the canyon. This is the deepest section of the canyon and the deepest part that anyone's ever been to previously. So these are images that are brand new to humanity's eyes. No one's ever seen these before. And what we're hoping to see are some more corals. Right now, it's mostly just rocks, which in of itself is a question. As I've been watching today, I've sort of developed a lot more questions related to geology than biology. I mean, absence of corals is still a very interesting question in itself. Why do they prefer certain areas as others? These are areas we expect to see corals. These are hard substrates where they like to attach to. But for some reason, we're not seeing any in these areas. That being said, we did find some cup corals earlier. So pretty much where there seems to be these overhanging cliffs, our theory is that they seem to like those overhangs because that seems to be a place that the flow seems to allow more food to come in for them. So we like to hang out on the spots. But yeah,
that's great that we that you were able to get some corals today. I know that's kind of the thing we've been like hoping for. So then we can also create some footage to show back to you all at home. Kind of what happens when we bring the samples up to shore. What do we do with those, and what does that process look like? So kind of what Adrian said before, like we've been seeing a lot of rocks. Right before, we were coming on this research cruise, there was a lot of discussion being like, well, what if it's just a bunch of sandy bottom or a bunch of rocks, right? And like we have these live streams for people to view every single day. But you know what? I think there's data in learning that it's just a bunch of sandy bottom and rocks. It's kind of cool to be some of the first eyes on what's down below especially like Adrian said, this is the deepest that anyone's ever explored Hudson Canyon with an ROV. So you're seeing it in real time, the same as us. So it's just really exciting to get to bring so many different perspectives and eyes to what down at the seafloor.
Yeah, and I can say we've moved across several different dive sites prior to the day. We've first started out at the head of the canyon around 500 meters depth, then moved to the middle of the canyon and sampled around something like 700 meters. Now we're at 2,100 meters, and I can say just alone the sheer diversity of assemblages that we're seeing between these different places that are only really several miles apart just show that there's so much heterogeneity in these spaces and such a wide variety of different habitats that different animals seem to enjoy and like to hang out in.
I'm just seeing some questions up in the chat, seeing what we got. Lots of people tuning in today. We're so happy to have you here. Someone asked, what is the scale at the top of the ROV feed? Oh, the scale at the top of the ROV is essentially a compass. Yeah.
Yes, it's a compass. So 0, if you can read the number at the top in red, it goes in a 360-degree direction. The 0 points to north. So right now at around 159, we're facing almost south, I believe. A little bit eastward direction.
How deep is the area the ROV is mapping? So right now, can't read that. Can you read that? What is that coming in at?
We're at 2,100 meters.
Yes, 2,100 meters.
Mhm.
Very deep. Nice. Let's see what else we have. Lots of people just in awe. I am also, I mean, we're all staring at the rock, but it's cool rock.
Again, to sort of talk a little bit about the geology of this place. So Hudson Canyon is a place that was first carved out maybe during the Pleistocene around 10 to 25,000 years ago. During that time, there was this massive glacier, this Greenland ice sheet that was around actually where it sort of tapers off where New York City is. Long Island is actually a moraine that was carved out by that glacier. But because there was this massive ice sheet, the sea level was lower. So the entire shelf was exposed. And the Hudson River ran from where it is now at the mouth all the way down across the Shelf Valley and carved out the canyon. So that canyon is actually where the coastline used to be. And with all the glacial runoff coming out as the sea level rose and the glaciers melted, that canyon was then carved out by all that glacial runoff and what people call turbidity currents.
Cool. For the team, which deep sea critter are each of you most hopeful / excited to see on the ROV dives?
Deep sea critter. I was very excited to see the grenadier. I know they're very common in deep sea spaces, but I did write my master's on grenadier, so I'm partial to that. They're just really cool animals. They're the most diverse, or one of the most diverse fish taxa in the deep sea. There's so many of them, and some people find them kind of ugly looking. I think it's only because they've seen pictures of them when they've reached the surface, and at that point they're not really looking too hot. But I find their sort of sleek bodies very, very interesting.
Yeah, and we saw that yesterday.
We saw them yesterday. We definitely saw a few today as well. But they're these triangular type fish, large dorsal fin, very skinny rat tail. People call them rat tails too.
Oh, there it is.
Oh. Actually, that is armored sea robin.
Oh, not that. Okay.
But I also thought that was really cool.
They look also rat-like.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. I think for me, we saw like 3 octopus yesterday. That was really cool. I like to, look at those down below. I think it's really cool. Honestly, I'm here for anything. Oh, little crab.
Little crab.
I think everything has just been really exciting, especially yesterday. Yesterday stream, you can go back and watch it. I mean, it was teeming with life the entire day. There was eels everywhere, lots of krill, lots of little shrimp. Yep. It was.
Those are euphausids, some salps we see. So those are colonial tunicates. But yeah, we see a lot of salps.
And all ranging in like completely different sizes too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all of those are each individually clones of another individual. The centerpiece of them, fortunately, we can't find them again, but in the middle, you see this orange dot. People think that's like an eye or something. That's usually actually the intestine. So that's where the gut is in the animal. Squat lobsters. I love squat lobsters.
Yeah, those are really cool.
They're pretty hypoxic tolerant. They're I love how they move. If you catch one swimming away, they swim backwards. So they just do this little like backwards little back pedal.
What do we got over here? Let's see.
Seeing some crabs as well.
Oh, yeah, and those are those eels.
Yeah.
Cutthroat eels.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a hake that we're seeing on the bottom there.
Nice.
Hake were very common. See some sea anemones as well.
Is that another hake right there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Another
Okay.
hake.
Cool.
I remember this is a dive we went on yesterday. Saw a bunch of. I think this is the spot actually.
Mm-hmm.
We called it. I remember someone in the ROV. We called it a hake party, and I asked if someone needed a birthday hake.
Oh, that's good. Birthday hake. Adrian's been filled with the puns, even in his recorded video. He couldn't. What would you say? I can't wait to see what I'll see down in the sea.
Something like that.
All right. So that pretty much wraps our time with Adrian today. Thanks for joining our little watch party. And thank you, Adrian, for coming along with me. So I'm just going to kind of close us out. I want to say thank you so much for tuning in to Livestream 2. We still have 2 left, plus our daily ROV dives that are going to finish off today and then start back up on Monday. And they'll be here for the rest of the week. So our next live stream is going to be on Tuesday, the 23rd. And this live stream will focus all about the history of the Arcturus, which was a research cruise that went out in 1925. So this will be the 100th year anniversary. And a part of that research cruise, they went to Hudson Canyon. So it's kind of crazy to think that 100 years later, we're back at Hudson Canyon, discovering the seafloor all over again. So we hope you can join us along then. It'll be at noon, and we'll have some really special guest speakers, especially learning from an artist and an archivist from the Wildlife Conservation Society. So otherwise, thank you so much, and we hope to see you on Tuesday.
Thank you.